to dismantle this agency than probably all of your predecessors put together. That may be a source of pride for you. Well,
by the way, with that wind-up, by the way, I understand that you were an aspiring fiction writer. I see why.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Cleaning
I
up
have to
after
think,
LA
Mr. Zeldin,
wildfires.
I think, Mr. Zeldin,
President when I was in San Diego.
if your children were
With the
drinking
Tijuana
water,
River sewage crisis,
if your
apparently
children
we're going
were
out on our
drinking
own for
water
that.
in Santa Ana, Mr.
Hey
Zeldin.
Patriots, welcome back to the channel. If you love freedom, faith, family, and the American dream, you're in the right place. Today we're breaking down a wild exchange from a recent congressional hearing where Congressman Adam Schiff went on a tirade against EPA Administrator Zeldin. Schiff accused Zeldin of, quote, dismantling the EPA and putting millions of Americans at risk. You've probably seen the headlines, full of doom and gloom, blaming conservatives for every problem under the sun. But folks, let's look past the theatrics and get to the heart of the matter. What's really best for American families, our economy, and our God-given freedoms? Let's dive in.
Mr. Zeldin, you've only been at the EPA for a few months, but in that time, you've done more to dismantle this agency than probably all of your predecessors put together. That may be a source of pride for you, but it is not for the American people. You've unlawfully terminated grants without justification. You've fired and pushed out some of the best scientists who inform EPA's decision-making. You refuse to spend money that Congress has appropriated to the EPA by law. And you've launched a pro-polluter effort to delete dozens of environmental protections. On top of all this, you've launched an effort to overturn California's Clean Air Act waivers that improve the quality of air breathed by 40 million Californians and by millions more in other states who have adopted California's high standards. That effort, for which my colleagues have decided to eliminate the filibuster to achieve, is not exactly what anyone would call cooperative federalism. But it's your budget that's the ultimate proof of your priorities. You propose cutting America's environmental agency by 55%, meaning that in your view, and that of President Trump, more than half of the environmental efforts of the EPA, more than half of the efforts to make sure Americans have clean air and clean water are just a waste. They're just a waste. Meaning that Californians and people all over the country, when they breathe the air, thanks to your good work, it'll mean there's more diesel and more other particulate matter in the air. When they drink a glass of water, they may not be able to see it, but this water that Americans drink is going to have more chemicals like PFAS, forever chemicals in their water. This will be your good work. I want to be very specific about the legacy you're going to leave if you're successful in eliminating half of our efforts to clean our water and our air. Your legacy will be more lung cancer. It'll be more bladder cancer. It'll be more head and neck cancer. It'll be more breast cancer. It'll be more leukemia and pancreatic cancer, more liver cancer, more skin cancer, more kidney cancer, more testicular cancer, more colorectal cancer, more rare cancers of innumerable varieties. That will be your legacy. I don't know that that's a legacy that anyone should want to have. My kids are going to be breathing that air just like yours. My family's going to be drinking the water just like yours. We may not be able to pinpoint just who gets cancer because you've done away with half the budget of those looking out for our clean water and clean air. But it's going to be somebody's kids. It's going to be somebody's family. To put this in more specific terms, there are 22 grants frozen by the EPA focused on improving health and reducing pollution, many of which directly impact children. For example, one project in Santa Ana, California, provided funding to help detect and prevent lead poisoning in children. According to the census, about 10% of the population in Santa Ana are under the age of 9. With a population of about 310,000 people, that means that 31,000 children are at risk of lead poisoning in Santa Ana without this funding. What is it about this grant that you and EPA believe is problematic enough to freeze this funding and put potentially 31,000 children at risk?
Senator, who is the grant applicant?
This is to the city of Santa Ana.
You have the biggest,
And are
you have the
you-
biggest
are you-
state, so
and
we're
are
going to have to
you-
go through every single list of the grant.
Well,
By the way, with that wind up, by the way, I understand that you were an aspiring fiction writer. I see why.
Oh, yeah. Well, I understand your view that you can cut half of the agency and it won't affect people's health or their water, or their air. That, to me, is a big fiction, Mr. Zeldin.
You
And
forgot about the
if,
fact of cleaning
I
up
have to
the
think,
LA
Mr. Zeldin,
wildfires
I think, Mr.
President
Zeldin,
when I was in San Diego.
if your children were
With the
drinking
Tijuana
water,
River sewage crisis,
if your
apparently we're
children
going
were
out on our
drinking
own for
water
that.
in Santa Ana, Mr. Zeldin, maybe you wouldn't be so cavalier about whether there was lead in their water. Maybe you would give a damn instead of coming in here and suggesting that any grant that takes lead out of the water must be waste, fraud, or abuse because
The
you
gentleman's
need
time has
because
expired.
you
Never said
need
that. The whole
the
thing,
money for a
everything
tax
you
cut
said
for rich people
your time. It's all
because
make-believe.
you're totally beholden to the oil industry.
The
You could give
gentleman's
you could
time-
give you could give a rat's ass about how much
is.
cancer
Because
your
people
agency
you're trying to
causes.
destroy.
The
Impeach,
gentleman's
resist.
time has expired. The chair recognizes herself.
First, Schiff says Zeldin dismantled the EPA more than all previous administrators. He's talking about firing bureaucrats, cutting budgets, and putting a stop to certain grants. Schiff wants you to think this is the end of clean air and water in America. But let's be real. When was the last time you saw a government agency shrink itself? Bureaucracies always want to grow, take more of your money, and control more of your life. Frankly, it's about time someone went in and started cleaning house at the EPA. For years, they've become bloated, inefficient, and in some cases, hostile to American industry and workers. They're supposed to protect our environment, not kill jobs, shut down businesses, and make it impossible for farmers and small business owners to survive. Schiff rants about unlawfully terminating grants and firing so-called top scientists. But let's not forget, these grants are your taxpayer dollars. Shouldn't we have the right to ask if they're actually accomplishing anything? Too often, these government grants turn into slush funds for activists and bureaucrats who push a radical agenda, not real science. If Zeldin fired people who weren't doing their jobs or were pushing politics over facts, good. That's what draining the swamp looks like. We want people in our agencies who are accountable to the American people, not unelected elites who think they know better than the rest of us. Schiff complains that Zeldin refused to spend money Congress appropriated. Well, maybe Congress shouldn't be shoveling out billions without oversight. There's nothing wrong with an agency head exercising fiscal responsibility. If a program is wasteful, duplicative, or just plain ineffective, shouldn't we say no? Isn't that what we send our leaders to Washington to do? Protect our hard-earned money? Now, Schiff accuses Zeldin of launching a pro-polluter effort in deleting environmental protections. Let's get this straight. Wanting reasonable, balanced regulation is not pro-polluter. It's pro-American. You can protect the environment and have a strong economy. For too long, the EPA has acted like every factory, every farm, every truck on the road is a threat. That's not how America thrives. The left wants to scare you with images of dirty air and water. But the truth is, our air and water have gotten cleaner over the decades, even as our economy has grown. You know why? Because American innovation works, not bureaucratic red tape. Schiff then brings up California's Clean Air Act waivers, acting like they're sacred. Sorry, but we're one country. Federalism doesn't mean one state gets to dictate policy for everyone else. California can't just set the rules for all American carmakers and consumers. Zeldin is right to stand up for the rest of the country, especially working-class Americans who can't afford California's radical mandates. Schiff calls the 55% EPA budget cut a disaster. But when was the last time government spending solved anything? Throwing money at a problem doesn't fix it. In fact, Massive bureaucracy often creates more problems. The real waste is keeping programs alive just because they exist, not because they work. Think about your own household. If you had a leaky budget, would you just keep spending, or would you cut out what's not working? Zeldin and President Trump are treating the EPA like any responsible family treats their budget. Cut the fat, keep what works, and make sure every dollar does its job. Now here comes the scare tactics. Schiff lists every type of cancer you can name, blames forever chemicals, and paints this apocalyptic picture. Listen, nobody wants dirty water or sick kids. That's a strawman argument. But let's have an honest conversation. The answer isn't to keep growing the EPA forever and hand more power to Washington, D.C. Most pollution today is well regulated. Industry, states, and local communities have made huge strides. The real threat to our kids is not a lack of bureaucracy. It's overregulation that kills jobs, raises prices, and drives families into poverty. Poverty is a bigger threat to health than anything the EPA's ever regulated. Schiff brings up a specific grant for Santa Ana, California, claiming that cutting EPA funding puts 31,000 kids at risk of lead poisoning. Folks, nobody wants kids to get lead poisoning. But let's look at the facts. Most lead risks come from old homes, local pipes, and infrastructure, things local and state governments are already responsible for. The federal government can help, but the answer is not to funnel endless money into inefficient programs with no accountability. We need targeted, effective solutions, not bloated, one-size-fits-all grants. Finally, Schiff resorts to personal attacks, accusing Zeldin of not caring about kids, being beholden to the oil industry, and wanting tax cuts for the rich. Classic leftist playbook: demonize your opponent, never address the real issues. Let's be clear. Conservatives care about clean air, clean water, and healthy families. We just don't believe that more federal control is the answer. We believe in strong communities, local solutions, and personal responsibility. So what's the real legacy here? Is it more cancer, like Schiff claims? Or is it an EPA that finally works for the people, not against them? Is it a government that respects your liberty and your paycheck, or one that keeps growing, spending, and controlling? I stand with Zeldin and President Trump. I stand for American jobs, American families, and American freedom. Don't let the fear-mongering from the left fool you. We can, and we will, protect our environment and our way of life. If you agree, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Tell me what you think. Do you trust the EPA to spend your money wisely? Or is it time for some real accountability? God bless you. God bless our families, and God bless the United States of America.